Hurricane Irene could be our next natural disaster. Something very dangerous and preventable is happening right across the border in Canada. Oil producers are going way beyond just drilling for oil. They've come up with a method to get at more fossil fuel, and it could very well create the next man-caused disaster. They're ripping out large chunks of earth to extract oil that comes from so-called tar sands buried underneath the forest in Alberta, Canada. The oil, known as bitumen, doesn't come clean. It's mixed in with sand and clay and water, and it's the kind of oil you start resorting to when you realize you're running out of the good stuff everywhere else. You can't just stick a drill in the ground to get to it. The process is being compared to clear cutting or strip mining. And it's the reason Canada's greenhouse emissions from oil and gas are predicted to leap by a third over the next decade. For more than a year, the energy company TransCanada has been shipping the oil down the pipeline you see on the solid line of this map. Now TransCanada wants to build a new, bigger, longer pipeline, the one on the left from Canada to the Gulf Coast. Critics call it a, quote, 1,500-mile fuse to the biggest carbon bomb on the continent, a way to make it easier and faster to trigger the final overheating of our planet. Could threaten some of the nation's most productive farmland and an aquifer that much of the Midwest depends on for its drinking water. For days, environmentalists have been lining up outside the White House, demanding President Obama block the project. More than 300 of the demonstrators, including my next guest, have been arrested in their fight to stop the pipeline. Joining me now, fresh from a two-night stint in a Washington, D.C. jail cell, environmentalist and author Bill McKibben, founder of 350.org. Bill, it's really a pleasure to have you on. Thanks so much.
Hey, Chris, what a pleasure to be with you.
I guess the first question is, why this battle? Why is this? There are lots of environmentally destructive projects that are happening all over the world at any moment. Why was this the one that you wanted to mobilize around and you were willing to yourself get arrested over?
Because this tar sands of Alberta is the second biggest pool of carbon on our planet. Jim Hansen at NASA, the premier climatologist in the country, said a few weeks ago, if we begin to tap it in a big way, it's essentially game over for the climate. That's why this is the largest environmental civil disobedience protest in a generation. People from all 50 states flooding into Washington to tell President Obama not to grant the permit. And the other reason that everybody's there is because, for once, the president can do the right thing all by himself. He doesn't have to involve Congress in any way. He gets to approve or deny this thing. So it's the purest test of whether or not he meant it in 2008 when, on the night he was nominated, you'll recall that great speech where he said, "With my presidency, the rise of the oceans will begin to slow and the planet begin to heal." Here's his chance to make good on that, and we sure hope he does.
Explain in a little more detail why it is the case that essentially the White House has the rare opportunity to unilaterally essentially block it without Congress. What is the process that's before that?
It crosses a national boundary, so there has to be a presidential finding that it's in the national interest, and the president has said he will decide yay or nay between now and the end of the year. So that's the question. You know, it's like he's got a 20-foot open jump shot, top of the key. Is he going to pass off? Is he going to take it? It's going to be really interesting to find out. And there are people, and I should stress, sort of not the usual suspects. When I spent a couple of nights in jail, I'm 50, and I was on the younger edge of our cohort. Now the police are being very, very respectful to people. Nobody's going to jail. They're spending a few hours at the station and paying a $100 fine. If people want to come join this protest, just go to tarsandsaction.org, and it's easy to come and have a really loud voice on what is clearly the most important environmental challenge that the president will face between now and the next election.
I want to end on this question. I've seen you speak a number of times. I've covered the stuff you've done at 350, and you have been working on this for a while now, along with a lot of people who've been working on it for decades. Gus Spurth at Yale and James Hansen at NASA. How do you maintain hope? Because sometimes I read about the climate and I just sort of despair, or I want to throw in the towel. And I wonder, since you're out there every day, you're here talking to me now, how do you avoid that?
It's easy to despair. It's easy to despair today watching Irene come up the coast. It's going to come over the warmest water that's ever been recorded off the shores of New Jersey and New York. I mean, Irene's middle name is global warming. I don't despair all the time because I see people standing up. We never have as much money as the oil companies, so for these 2 weeks we're figuring out a different currency. That's our bodies, and putting them on the line, that feels very good, very powerful, and I think we have a chance.